there. So there's the right atrium, inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, and inferior vena cava. All right, so veins which are blue, they are running towards the right atrium of the heart. Okay, then the other thing too, I said, look at relationships. Which blood vessel drains into which blood vessel, etc., etc. All right, so superior vena cava right there, draining into it from the right side. So we have to tilt the organs over to the left. So there you can see right against the vertebral canal right there is the vein that drains waste out of the spinal cord, which is the azygos vein right there. All right, and which I didn't say anything about, which I'll say here, folks. You can see there are the pink little arteries right there. They are going to drain into the aorta, and those are called the azygos arteries. They're very, very small. So we don't have a major azygos artery as we have the vein. Okay? So that's going to drain into the SVC right there. And then also last time I pointed out that there we see branches of the vagus nerve. Okay? Then, oh yeah, let me just quickly before I forget. All right, so next week, folks, we start on the organ systems. All right, and what's going to happen is there's going to be 2 sets in the labs that we're going to run through. One is going to be the human, so that'll be the chapters, and we're doing the respiratory system next week. And I'm not quite sure what chapter that is in the book, chapter 23, I believe it is. So organ systems, I'll go through 2 parts in the lab. I'll do the human first, and that'll be your quizzes. And then 2 will be A and B, because that'll be the cat systems and the fetal pig. All right, and we're doing the fetal pig, folks, that you can do hands-on stuff and prod and poke, work with the scissors, cut up the stuff, etc. as you want to. This is lab exam number 2. I have the cats, so there you're going to see nicely. I've got several cats there. And again, I did not clean out that like I planned, so I'll do that sometime, but there'll be 3 or 4 cats for you to look at. So I'll do a demo with that and fetal pig dissection. So you want to look at the handouts. So respiratory system, there will be human handouts, cat, and I actually just pulled that from a colleague. She's already done the fetal pig internal organs. I just need to clean that up a little bit. Clean it up to me, so there's nothing there yet. I'll tell you when it'll be available for you for next week. And if it's late, I'll make copies for everybody. All right, so it'll be a cat, a handout, and the respiratory system right there. So human and cat and fetal pig. Okay? All right, so let's see where we are. So, superior vena cava, azygos vein, and from the mammary glands or next on either side of the sternum, internal mammary vein, and you can see right there, letter Y. The other thing too that we highlighted, letter Y. Lots and lots of letter Y. And what does letter Y mean? Degree of branching. Right? So there we see the internal mammary vein as a letter Y because it's coming from the left side and the right side draining in there. Okay? Then we have this right here. So there's the brachiocephalic vein, letter Y as well. Comes from the right and the left side. Okay? Then brachiocephalic in turn has letters Y. So there we see coming out of the arm and coming out of the neck area. Okay? So from the neck area, this big one is the external jugular. Can't call it the jugular because we've got external jugular, we have transverse jugular, and if it is present, there's going to be a thinner internal jugular right there. All right, the internal jugular won't be as prominent as the external jugular, is what we are saying. Okay? Then over there, forming a T-junction coming from across the shoulder into the side of the neck is the cephalic vein. So notice there's cephalic and there's brachiocephalic. All right? And again, if you know the roots of the words, it's going to help you, folks. Because brachio pertains to upper arm. Cephalic pertains to the front or the head area. So cephalic can't be down there. Brachio can't be down there. That's what we are saying. Okay? Right, so brachiocephalic, there was the external jugular running into it, one part of the Y, there's the other. So long blue vein, and depending on where we are, under the clavicle, in the chest cavity, subclavian. Armpit area, armpit area, axillary. So notice roots of words and body parts, armpit, axillary. Upper arm, brachium, brachial, right? Forearm, on the thumb side, the radial. All right, and then I also pointed out for your information there's a nice big cat, so we can actually see that. There's going to be a notice letter Y there as well. So what is the other one that runs to the pinky finger, the back right here, the elbow area? So that is the ulnar. Never going to ask the ulnar. That is just for your information, the radial. So what we see is one blood vessel, 1, 2, 3, 4 different names based on where in the limb it's located. Then we come back to the subclavian, and there we see running behind or below the scapula, the subscapular vein right there. All right, so diagrams, right, labeled here as you're studying. You can go ahead and label the unmarked diagram there. Okay, above the heart. Now we go below the heart, and there we see, we tilt the liver, the lungs out of the way, we can see the inferior vena cava there. There's the diaphragm. And once we pass the diaphragm right there, folks, we see first right there the adrenal gland. Now, just quickly, we did the autonomic nervous system a short while ago, and there is the small adrenal gland right there. Relatively small. And when we cut through the adrenal gland, the inner part is going to be the adrenal medulla. Right? And the adrenal medulla releases nor and epinephrine. So in the autonomic nervous system, we call those neurotransmitters. In the endocrine system, we call those hormones. And there we can see this big vein running across or associated with that, and that is called the adrenal lumbar vein. And that vein is going to be the one that is going to send norepinephrine to the rest of the body. Fight-flight response, right? The fight-flight. All right, there's the kidney, and there's the renal vein. Okay, that's the ureter right there, which we'll get you in a couple of weeks. Then, on the left-hand side, we see running into the renal vein, the genital vein. Now, once we've identified genital, then we can determine gender, male, testicular, female, ovarian. So first genital, then gender. So gender neutral, then gender specific, right? And then we can see it on the other side. This cat just happens to have it nicely right there. So there we can see right there is the genital on the right-hand side. And notice they are uneven, or they are not equal, because where do they drain into? Left side into the renal vein, right side into the inferior vena cava. All right? We continue down, and there we see the branching. And the branching runs into right there, letter Y, and in the body cavity, it is called the common iliac vein in the body cavity. So on the quiz next week, folks, you're going to have to look there, right? Because it's a one diagram. We can't see here what is inside or outside, so I'm going to have to give you guidance. If it's in the body cavity, it's called the common iliac. If it's in the thigh area, it is the femoral. Lab exam number 2, you're going to see it very clearly. There's going to be no problems because you're going to see it there in the body cavity. You're going to see it there outside in the leg. Yeah, clear here. There, look for the guidance. Look for the guidance. All right? Both here and here. If I want that to be the axillary, then what am I going to have to tell you? Armpit area. Armpit area. Here, same thing. There, armpit area, axillary. There, upper arm area. Well, here you can see it clearly. Upper arm area, brachial. And there, forearm area. I'm going to have to give you guidance on the diagram. All right? All right, so the femoral artery runs down, and then we see the first separation, the first T-junction again, that's called the caudofemoralis. Caudofemoralis, caudal pertaining to the tail. Cats have a tail that we had cut off, tail. So that caudofemoralis artery and vein is associated with the tail. And the tail, like a rudder on a boat, helps with balance or counterbalance when the cat is turning, right? Then we continue, and then we see this long vein right here, right up against the skin, folks, right up against the skin. All right, so the next time you're looking at your skin, you can see it right there. It runs right there, right there. That vein right there, right against the skin. So we just cut it, and there it is, right? That's called the saphenous or saphenous vein, and I mentioned that because the saphenous vein shows up when we talk about heart medical conditions. So if you know someone that had bypass surgery, that is going to be the major vein that they make an artificial artery from, right there, the saphenous or saphenous, right? That runs into the femoral, and then there we've got the big one that comes from behind the knee, and behind the knee is popliteal. So there we see another letter Y, letter Y. All right, and like I said, this diagram compared to your new diagram, the blank one, the blank is nicer drawn versus this. Okay, you can see it right there in terms of how that is. So there's the saphenous, that's the popliteal. All right, here I'd ask you to actually extend this down there like that. Okay. Right, so those are the veins, folks. Questions on the veins. Arteries are going to be, when we get into the limbs, it's going to be very easy because what are we going to see? We're going to see that the arteries run next to the veins, and in the limbs, the names are the same as well. Subclavian, axillary, brachial, radial, femoral, popliteal, caudofemoralis, all the same already. Okay? There are some differences, and we'll run through that. But, right, so now what do we see? So now notice here, folks, please also notice, we've made things easy. On the cat, it's going to be nice and easy. The fetal pig, not as clear as this. Fetal pig, a hard time to actually inject the paint into it. It's also very compact. Yes, we cut through all of this right here, so we don't see it all that clearly. That's why I'm sticking with the cats, right? Blue for the veins, pink for the arteries, all right? I know it is a vein because where are the veins running into?
To the atrium.
Right, atrium. There is the artery, and where's the artery coming out of? LV. LV, not a standard abbreviation, but we know what that is, right? So, there now is the heart again, folks, and there is the left ventricle, there's the right ventricle. So coming out of the left ventricle right there is the aortic arch, or the aorta. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna work back into the heart. So there is the aorta, and there's the arch of the aorta. Arch, a curved area. All right, so it curves aorta, and there's the arch. Right there, so there we see the aorta right there, and there we see the aortic arch, right? And on the cat, we see two arteries that branch off the aorta. So the first big one is the brachiocephalic artery. The second big one is the left subclavian. All right? So the first, now notice I'm saying first big one. It's actually the second branch that comes off the aorta, because what is the first one that we saw on the deer heart nicely? Question number 39 was the coronary artery, which is going to be way down there, way down there. So the coronary artery is down there, just above the aortic semilunar valve, right? And we're looking at the big blood vessels. So first one is brachiocephalic, and now what we do, folks, there's brachiocephalic, and we take up the brachiocephalic, and what do we see? Not letter Y, but 1, 2, 3 branches. 1, 2, 3, and here if I squeeze this up like this, then you can see the other 3 branches right there. The other 3 branches, right? This one has been broken off. So what we're going to do, we're going to work from left to right, okay? So on the far left-hand side is the left carotid artery, or common carotid artery. There's the trachea. There's the trachea. There's the trachea. And on this side of the trachea, which is the middle branch, is the right common carotid. So they're both carotids. So the first 2 branches, the carotids. All right? Now you want to make a note against the carotid arteries also, because there you see a branch of the vagus nerve right up against it. So carotid artery, vagus nerve, carotid artery, vagus nerve, right there nicely, right? Then, folks, the third branch right here, which is cut off right here, is the right subclavian artery. Right subclavian, which becomes axillary, which becomes the brachial, which becomes the radial that we had seen in the veins, right? So on the cat, how many branches off the brachiocephalic artery? 1, 2, 3. Left, right common carotid artery, right subclavian, right? Second branch that comes off the aorta is the left subclavian. So notice there's the differences, right? Left subclavian off the aorta, right subclavian off brachiocephalic, like with the genital veins, all right? So now on the left-hand side, I just follow that. So there, folks, is the left subclavian into the left axillary. So notice there now. So right here, I have to open up the brachial plexus a little bit, or move the brachial plexus out of the way, because the brachial plexus is where the artery will be. Remember, arteries are deep, veins are superficial, okay? So left subclavian, artery and vein. Left axillary, artery and vein, armpit area. Left brachial artery and vein. And notice how small the radial artery is compared to the radial vein. Veins, remember, big lumens. Arteries, much, much smaller. There's more blood in the veins than the arteries. All right, and you're going to keep that. Those are little nuggets that we're going to come back to when we get to the cardiovascular system. 5 liters of blood in the body. 3 of those 5 liters in the veins. 2 of the 5 liters arteries and blood capillaries. Okay? So there, ladies and gentlemen, then we come back here, and then there's my subclavian artery right there, subclavian vein, and there we see subscapular artery and subscapular vein. Same names, right? Subscapular artery, subscapular vein. They are next to one another. So you learn the one and you learn both of them. Blue is vein, pink is artery. All right? There's my diaphragm right there, folks, right there. So now there's aorta looping, and we see no major arteries. We could have said azygous little arteries. I skipped that because there we see the small arteries running into the vertebral column right there. All right, so aorta And then the aorta right there there's my diaphragm. And then, folks, the minute we pass the diaphragm, that's right, this one here, what's that? I took my daughter this weekend. She's doing her clinicals at Lenox Hospital, so she's hanging out in New York City. And she saw a subdural hematoma surgery. So she was doing the nervous system. She just wrapped that up a month after the last week, wrapped that up. So one of the surgeries she saw was a tumor on the right-hand side. And what they did was they cut, and so we're chatting, right, laughing at ice cream. She says, oh, Dad, they made it like a horn of a ram. Right, so everybody knows what the horn of the ram looks like that. So they cut it like that, peeled it away the skull, cut through the skull, lifted up, dura mater, and there they saw the tumor right there. What color was the tumor? Dark red. They actually excised that, right? That's one, right? Really interesting. So she kind of like, the second one was a pituitary tumor. Pituitary tumor, and they went, and where did they go through to get to the pituitary gland? Through the nose, like that, right through. Again, endoscopy, through, open up the nose, through the sphenoid bone to the pituitary gland. It's like, what the heck, wild, endocrine system, endocrine. And of course, seeing it right there, how they do the surgeries. All right. No, so I was just thinking about that because of how I had to manipulate this here. So let's have a look here, folks. So after the diaphragm, right there, so the diaphragm now becomes a point of reference. So as soon as you pass the diaphragm on the arteries, you look for two arteries. So diaphragm, there's aorta running down there. And as soon as we pass the diaphragm, so the diaphragm will be right there. There's aorta. There we see 2 arteries. The first one is called the celiac artery. Celiac artery. All right, now there are 2 terms that pertains to stomach. The primary one for the stomach is gastro. And then the second one, stomach and kind of lower GI, is celiac disease, right? So there's the celiac artery right there. Then, folks, and again, I wasn't quite sure how to draw this because this is 3-dimensional, so we're just drawing it like this. So celiac has how many branches right there?
3.
1, 2, 3. All right, so, and here we just happen to see them nicely right there. So there, folks, so come on in here so you can see. So there's the celiac artery right there. And that first artery right there is called the hepatic artery. So roots of words now helps us. It dips under the stomach to the liver. Hepatic pertains to the liver. So that artery right there takes nutrients to the liver. Right, notice heaviest organ, liver. Everything we eat and drink, people, goes there before it gets into the body. And there's the gallbladder, the green gallbladder right there. Okay? The second one we see right there is the gastric. And here, notice the scatter is nice and big, so the arteries are big as well. So it actually worked out nicely. So there is the gastric. And gastro pertains to the stomach. And there is the stomach right there. So there's the stomach. Cat's stomach looks exactly like the human stomach. We call it the J-shaped. J-shaped. All right, if this were a herbivore, then the stomach would be a little different. Okay, and then the third one is called the splenic, which is the longest one right here. So there's the splenic, and it runs into the spleen right there. So there's the spleen. So liver, stomach, spleen, hepatic, gastric, splenic. Okay, and you can see it right there. The second artery, which is broken off in this cat, that's why the pin is there, is called the superior mesentery. Now, superior means above. All right, so you want to make a note. Superior is actually the bigger one, and it runs to the small intestine. So superior, small intestine, right here, right there. All right, and the small intestine, folks. So there's my large intestine. So that runs under the large intestine, into the small intestine right there. This right here, this membrane right there, is called the mesentery. So we'll talk about this again when we get to digestion. So mesentery, the membrane that holds the small intestine. And all of the pink are branches of the superior mesentery. So pink branches of the superior mesentery. And it takes nutrients to the small intestine. All right, now, and again, like I said, I'm not quite sure how to have drawn this over here. I need to sit down and think about it again. I just left it like that there, folks. But what I did was I drew blue against, I should actually use brown next time. All right? So there's my branches of my superior mesentery, which is pink. And then we see brown. It's never going to be blue. It stays brown. Brown blood in that. So all of that brown right there, they are going to drain into this vein right here, which is a massive vein right there. Right there. So what I needed to actually have done was to draw blue and then a vein right there. And that vein right there, folks, is called the hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. And when we get to blood vessels, portal, it's a vein carrying deoxygenated blood, but it's going to carry something beneficial. And in this case, it's carrying all of our nutrients. So think about what you had for breakfast this morning. So you had carbohydrates. It's broken down into glucose by now. Glucose are being transported there. If you had protein, protein is broken down into amino acids transported. So from my small intestine through the hepatic portal vein to the liver. So the major vein running between my small intestine tube and the liver is that vein right there. It's always going to be brown because it's got a sort of a little separate circulatory system. So blue paint can't get into that. All right, so that's all blood. That's all blood. Hepatic portal vein, branches of the hepatic portal vein, carries nutrients. Very, very important. Okay. All right, there's the kidney, and there we have the renal artery, smaller than the renal vein. So there's renal artery, renal vein. There's the aorta, continues down. Here's my large intestine or the colon. And there, folks, is the inferior mesentery artery running to the colon. So inferior mesentery to large intestine, superior mesentery to small intestine. Okay, branches. And we are just going to call that artery the common iliac as well. It has a different name, folks, but we are going to just call it common iliac. So common iliac artery vein right next to one another. So common iliac inside the body cavity, yes. Now it goes outside, and there we see the femoral artery next to the femoral vein, next to the femoral nerve. So there we see that. All the same name, yeah, femoral triangle. Cream, the nerve, pink, the artery, blue, the vein. All right? There is the cordofemoralis artery and vein. And then the femoral artery runs. And when it goes behind the knee, it's called the popliteal. So there's popliteal artery vein. Remember, there's no saphenous vein because saphenous veins are superficial. That arteries, they run deep. We can't see the deep artery. It will be the tibia and the fibula artery. All right? So there, ladies and gentlemen, are the arteries. Your quiz next week, or the quiz on the blood vessels, will be those two diagrams right there. So there's no funny stuff. No funny stuff. You know what it is right there.